Hi, I'm Katie Crane, and this is the Pilates Lounge. Hi, I'm Katie Crane, the Pilates professional. Welcome to the Pilates Lounge. Today, I am talking to you all about body position. Now, lately, I have seen a trend on social media that body position is not important. And I've even seen some people posting things like, there is no evidence to tell us that body position is important. So I think that it's super important that we have these conversations so that you can make an educated decision and help your clients and help your body move well. So there's no doubt about it that when somebody moves well, it looks graceful. As somebody who loves surfing, I love watching people surf, like pro surfers, and take Kelly Slater, for example. He makes surfing look so effortless. I mean, he literally floats on the water. But if you've never tried surfing and you want to get on a surfboard and even try and paddle out the back so that you even get to the waves that Kelly Slater is on, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. So the fact that he doesn't only do it well, but he does it in a way that looks effortless means that his body is moving with such precision that he has found grace in that precision. So ultimately, this is what we're trying to teach our clients. This is what we're trying to share with the people that we work with, is we're trying to teach them how to move gracefully, how to find effortless movement. And the only way that we can do that is by starting somewhere, by having a foundation. The other day, I posted on my Instagram as an argument to the people who have been posting that neutral pelvis, neutral spine does not matter. I said something along the lines of, can you imagine the best tennis player in the world, obviously Djokovic? Can you imagine if he was never taught how to throw a tennis ball up in the air? Well, if he never taught the foundation of throwing a tennis ball in a straight line in the air, there was no ways that he's ever going to be able to serve an ace. A swimmer will learn how to flutter kick, and they will practice that flutter kick for hundreds and hundreds of hours before they ever start to practice the butterfly, which is a much more complex movement in swimming. A basketballer is going to practice for hours and hours and hours how to dribble a basketball. And it's by practicing those foundation moves that those elite athletes get to be the best in the world. So in Pilates, in our environment, what is one of our foundations? It's neutral pelvis and neutral spine. So yes, absolutely, the body moves in and out of neutral all the time. We do not live in neutral. No shit, Sherlock. But if we don't understand where neutral is, if we don't practice and teach the foundations, then we're missing some of the most important aspects of Pilates. And if we miss those important aspects, then we're going to neglect our clients the ability to ever really perform at their best. And what we see when people don't understand the foundations is they can go and practice the advanced repertoire, but I can tell you now, they're not doing Pilates. They're imitating movement. Because if you've ever been taught by somebody who really knows their stuff in any type of movement, whether it's Pilates or tennis or swimming or basketball, they will be able to break down those movements so well and so succinctly that it makes every single part of whatever it is that you're practicing super, super difficult. But as you hone in on those skills, as you perfect those foundations, then and only then will it allow for ease and graceful movement to happen in the body. Does that make sense? Now, here's the caveat. Neutral spine on paper can be very, very different to somebody's natural spine. And when I'm working with somebody, so say if I'm looking on a piece of paper, because that's where we all learnt, was we had to look at those pieces of paper, the pictures of the plumb line, the shapes of the body, somebody with a kyphosis, somebody with a lordosis, somebody in fatigued posture. Remember all those pictures that we looked at? And then you see that perfect posture, somebody in neutral. Well, you possibly have never actually seen somebody in the flesh with that perfect posture, have you? So that is the foundation of what we are looking for, but it's not necessarily the reality of what we get to work with. So this is how I teach it to my students or to my clients. So if you're laying down in supine, so if you want to do your footwork or your hands in straps, you lay down on the reformer, you pop your feet up onto the foot bar. Your ideal is that you can feel that your pelvis, your sacrum in particular, feels very flat and wide as you're laying down on it, right? That upside down triangle part, your sacrum, it feels like there's a widening of the sacrum. And then you can feel that there's a widening and a heaviness in the back of the rib cage. But you're not forcing anything. You're just allowing for gravity to do its job. Because in Pilates, really what we're doing is we're performing different exercises or different movements, and we're changing the relationship of gravity depending on whether we're standing, supine, prone, or quadruped, right? Really, we're doing a lot of the same movements, but we're just shifting our relationship to gravity. So when we're laying down, gravity's pulling the posterior part of our body down towards the ground. But even though the sacrum is wide and heavy and the ribs are wide and heavy, the skull is wide and heavy as we're laying there, I want to allow for the rest of the spine to be relaxed and a sense of elongation, but not forced, just a sense of space in the body. So I'm definitely not actively imprinting the low back, but I'm also not actively lifting the low back. It's whatever shape the body is in when the body is not forced that is comfortable to the body. And then once the person is in that shape, so sacrum, rib cage, skull, nice and heavy and wide and open into the carriage, then you can bring your legs to tabletop or have your feet on the foot bar. And then say you're doing your footwork and you're pushing out, pulling in the carriage, then you want to maintain that shape in the body. So it means that as you press the carriage out, you're not actively imprinting the low back, but nor are you actively elevating it. Because I've heard both of those cues being taught in a Pilates class. I've heard instructors say to activate your abdominals, you want to imprint your low back into the bed. No. If you imprint your low back into the bed actively, then you're going to over-recruit your six-pack muscles, your rectus abdominals, and your obliques. You may feel like your spine is close to the carriage, but you're certainly not imprinting it. But then on the other hand, I have also heard instructors say that there should always be, in inverted commas, a hand space between the bed and your lumbar spine. Well, no. If I'm having to maintain that, having to hold that shape all the time, personally, I would feel that my low back was very active, like overactive. And that's not the point. It should be whatever is your natural shape that doesn't feel forced. And everybody is going to be a little bit different. So generally, the person who is teaching the imprint, that's because they feel that their spine is an imprint. And the person that is teaching a hand space, that's because when they lay down, there's probably a hand space. But that may not be relative to you, or it may not be what your body does. So it's really, really important that when we're teaching those neutral body positions, they are not forced positions. The idea is that the position that you're in is comfortable, it's not causing undue tension in the body, and you're able to maintain it. I hope that that makes sense. So now, if we come to a standing position, it may be a little bit different because my relationship to gravity has once again shifted. Once I'm standing, then gravity is getting pulled down through the feet, and my spine, because of gravity, is almost getting a little bit compressed from the top to the bottom. So now my sense of neutral, I do want to feel almost like there's a lengthening through my spine. I always cue that I imagine that my head is a helium balloon and that helium balloon is floating up off of my shoulders. I'm sure I stole that from Eric Franklin. If you haven't seen Eric Franklin's work, then check him out. He's a master at imagery. So as that helium balloon is floating off of my shoulders, I imagine that my spine is the string of that helium balloon coming down through the center of my body, and there's that sensation of lifting. So I certainly don't want to feel a sensation of compression. Now, this is the thing. When it comes to cueing, and we'll go through a cueing workshop at one stage as well, I always tend to cue from my peripherals. So I'm looking at what is happening in somebody's feet before I'm looking at what's happening in their pelvis, especially when they're standing. So I want to see that when somebody is standing, say I want them to stand with their feet in line with their ASIS, just for argument's sake. I want them to feel that they've got equal pressure through the heel of the foot and the ball of the foot just for now. And then I want them to feel like there's almost a little bit of elevation, a little bit of air underneath the arch of the foot. So actually that's where that string is coming from, is the arch of the foot is gently elevating, and then that's going all the way up through to the crown of the head, which is the helium balloon floating off of the shoulders. Now, when somebody is standing, I can normally really see where their idiosyncrasies are in their, I can evaluate their posture a little bit better. But then I need to decide, what am I going to change in their posture? Because anything that I change has a knock-off effect underneath and above that change that I'm making. So before we're so quick to jumping on somebody to completely shift their whole body shape when they're doing something, maybe you could just cue one part of the body to help them shift their body weight a little bit, maybe through their feet, through their hands, through their head, and see if that then improves where their posture wants to sit and work from there. I think that it's really, really important that we take that into account when we're trying to teach people correct posture. And I wonder if this is where the argument has come from, of people saying that correct posture doesn't matter, or the neutral pelvis, neutral spine doesn't matter. It's actually the overcorrecting of people that becomes an issue just as much as the not correcting people. So we do need to choose our argument, or we do need to choose our battle when we're working with the body, and we need to realize that every single body is having a very individual experience, and that what we tell that body or how we cue that body can be very beneficial, but it also can have a negative knock-off effect on another part of the body. Sometimes just by doing the work, just by using the Pilates exercises, the body does start to change, simply because we are moving the body in all different directions, and we're accessing muscles that aren't necessarily being accessed on a daily basis. And if somebody's playing sports, so if I'm working with a triathlete, they're always moving in a very specific way, whether they're running, cycling, or swimming. They're all very forward motion. So they come to Pilates, and all I'm doing really is cross-training them. I'm working in all directions, and that's then going to get them very efficient, or more efficient, in the sport that they've chosen. So sometimes just by doing the Pilates work, we can shift body postures, but we absolutely must be able to help somebody set themselves up with a good foundation. One of those foundations is learning a neutral pelvis and understanding what that person's natural spine, or I call their neutral spine their natural spine, because everybody is different. If I looked at an African American body and then I looked at a Japanese body, two very different body types. The Asian spine tends to be much flatter. The Asian pelvis is much flatter, which is why we go to those Asian countries. I lived near Asia, so I spend a lot of time in Southeast Asia, and it blows me away all the time how they're able to crouch down and sit pretty much on their haunches without having to sit on a chair. And they can sit like that for hours and hours on end, playing cards, conversing. You see 80-year-olds sitting like that. Partly it's the shape of their body that allows, the shape of their bones, their structure that allows them to do that. You look at an African, quite often they have this beautiful lordosis in their spine. Very, very different. So they would struggle quite often to crouch into that Asian body position. So different cultures have different body shapes. It's all relative to the land that they live on, to the environment that they come from. So within a class situation, everybody in the class has an individual natural spinal position. What we want to do is teach the person how to position themselves that they are not over-exerting muscles or under-developing muscles, that they're working in ways that allows them to sit tall, to feel long, to create space in the joints, to allow for complete range of movement, to allow for multi-planes of movement. And all of that happens when our client's body understands the foundation, which absolutely is neutral pelvis and their natural spine shape without exerting anything. It's food for thought. It's the way that I see the body. It's the way that I teach my clients. And it's the way that I have helped facilitate people overcome chronic injury, chronic pain, and long-term discomfort. So I think that the foundations of movement can never be overlooked. And the only people that are saying that the foundations of our movement principles don't matter are saying that simply because they don't understand why it matters. And so we have to be very, very careful when we have these arguments, or when we listen to these arguments, is where does their understanding of the body lie? And where are they learning these arguments from? Because if they don't understand the why isn't important or why it is important, then the argument is moot. I hope that this is food for thought for you, and I hope that you continue to explore the individual beauty of every body that comes in front of you, and that you can recognize that every body is having a completely individual experience that we get to be part of. Now, before I finish up today, I just want to remind you, if you have enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you like and share it with your Pilates professional and movement loving friends, so that we can get the word out there and really create a community right here in this hub. Be sure to check out my website, thepilatesprofessional.com.au, and have a look if you can find any workshops, which I'm sure you can, that you may be needing right now. Remember, I also do a 6-month reformer teacher training mentor program. I call it a mentor program because I literally personally mentor each student through their own program until they are ready to teach reformer. It's what I specialize in. And I think that this is one of the biggest missing links in our industry right now, is that we have these wonderful diploma level training workshops that people can do to become very comprehensively trained in Pilates. But when it comes to reformer, it's so wishy-washy out there that you could become an instructor online with no personal access to a mentor ever, or you could become a reformer instructor as a stepping stone to diploma level training. So where I come into it is I just do reformer teacher training that is recognized and recommended by the Pilates Association of Australia, which means that my students then become members of PAA. It's super important for our industry, and it's what our students deserve. So if you know somebody who is looking to become a reformer teacher, then this is where you want to send them, the pilatesprofessional.com.au. They can reach out to me. I can have a call with them and see if I have a program that is coming up that is suitable for them. And or I also do a host of online workshops for you to expand your repertoire and your understanding specifically of the Pilates work. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to you listening to the next episode next week. I'm Katie Crane, the Pilates Professional.